welcome back. It is Friday, and it is time for our Rush Hour Roundtable. Before you meet our panel, let's get into our first topic. Our military facing its biggest recruitment shortfall in decades. Just today, the U.S. Coast Guard projected it'll be 1,000 under its goal to fill 4,000 positions this year. And to make the Coast Guard more attractive, new members can earn a $2,000 signing bonus now just by joining. Depending on one's skill level, that offer can increase between $10,000 and $40,000. And meantime, the Army National Guard has recruited less than half of its fiscal 2022 goal as of mid-June. So to help boost recruitment there, the Iowa National Guard is offering potential soldiers a $20,000 signing bonus. The U.S. Army says that by October of next year, they will miss their target of recruits by almost 30,000 men and women. Officials saying that there are several factors here. There is a shortage of recruiters, more medical qualifications for people who do want to join, and of course the pandemic, which limited recruitment in schools.
And our youth today are just not as interested in serving in the military as they have in the past. It just keeps compounding to where you just have a smaller and smaller and smaller pool of people to be trying to target to join the military.
Okay, so let's introduce you today to our roundtable. Joining us is Jason Rantz, host of the Jason Rantz Show on KTTH in Seattle. We have Dr. Laura McNeal, a legal analyst and lecturer at Columbia University. Reyahd Kazmi, owner of Kazmi Advisors, LLC. And I think we're going to start with you three. Thank you so much for being here. And let's jump right in. Does the government need to do more to make these jobs more enticing? Let's go first to you, Andrea. Or I'm sorry, to you, Reyahd.
Yes, thank you so much. I think it also starts beyond competitive benefits packages. It starts with civics education, and not just civics education, but also educational opportunities and teaching education in a way that relates to our young people. A Pew Research study said that less than 30% of 4th, 8th, and 12th grade students were proficient in civics. That's a problem. So maybe we need to look at how we're actually teaching and presenting it. Let's look at how we can connect with our young people. Let's use music, art, culture. Take, for example, Lin-Manuel Miranda's famous Hamilton. People of all ages loved that play, and guess what? They learned history as a result of it. So I think we've got to start there. If we then move on to educational opportunities, the JORTC reported that 49% of all new recruits, all their new recruits that did not have a family member who was a part of the military, 49% all had JORTC at their school. So maybe we need to start looking at teaching and educating our young people.
I mean, Reyahd, I completely hear you, and not to pick on you or to push back. You know, Gen Z is canceling Hamilton as we speak. It is true. Millennials like me, we loved Hamilton. They are now pointing out all kinds of problematic things with it, and only about 1 in 10 young people right now say that they would ever consider joining the military. Do we have a patriotism problem, and how do we get more young people to be more patriotic? Jason, can we go to you?
Yeah, we absolutely do. So you have two different groups of folks that you might want to appeal to. Number one, you've got younger folks who you are actively teaching in high school and in college that this country was founded on white supremacy and that it is institutionalized in everything that we absolutely do. So, of course, if you're telling people that this is an awful country, they're going to probably strain a little bit to justify defending it. On the other hand, you've got folks who truly love this country, are not buying into some of the nonsense that's being taught in high schools and colleges that degrade this country. The problem is you're telling them that they have to get vaccinated in order to become a troop. And on top of that, you're now instilling in them all of this garbage around white rage and white fragility and socialism, how we have to actually teach that. And you better make sure you get those gendered pronouns correct. They don't want to join a military like that. So I think we have to go back to what the military actually was all about instead of treating it as some sort of social justice cause.
Dr. Laura, can I bring your voice in here?
Yes, I think something we have to remember too, I do agree with the initial statement that we have to start young, and that's with civics. Currently, less than only a handful of states actually still require civics as part of the curriculum. So imagine a recent statistic showed that less than 55%, which is outrageous, of Americans even can tell you what the first 3 branches of the government are. And so the lack of training in terms of helping students understand not only the importance of democracy, but what role we each can play. And one of those roles in protecting our great democracy is serving in the military. But I think that the real issue in terms of on the adult level is the extreme division and polarization in our country right now around so many divisive issues. There is a lack of patriotism, and I think it's a reflection of just where we are right now as a country. And I think the short-term solution is you have to give monetary incentives, as you mentioned in your opening, to get people to sign up.
I mean, absolutely. And let's talk about standards for a second, because we know to medically qualify for the military, leaving education aside for a moment, you do need to answer these 75 health questions. Some of them, I was surprised, very specific. We're talking about not only asthma, but allergies to common foods like milk, bread, and eggs. Any bedwetting since the age of 12. And obesity, though, the major reason many are disqualified in this country. Less than a quarter of young Americans are actually physically fit enough to enlist and don't have a disqualifying criminal record. So do you think the military should lower their standards to allow more people to join? And we are bringing in Andrea as well. Thank you so much for being here. And we have our panel of 4. Jason, let's start with you.
No, we clearly shouldn't unless there is a very specific reason to, because it's no longer valid. This idea that we're going to lower the standards for the intent of bringing in more people who otherwise would be disqualified, I think that that's a bad reason. We have these in place because we want to make sure that they are ready to go to war should they actually have to. And part of the reason why, for example, things that it might sound kind of silly that if you are allergic to milk, yeah, well, if you have an allergic reaction in the field and you're overseas, you're adding to the stress of actually having to do your main goal, which is to win a war. So let's make sure that people are physically fit. That is a key part of all of this. And I'm definitely not going to get in the way of kicking people out who have wet their bed at the age of 22. Sorry.
Well, Andrea Kaye, Republican strategist, thank you so much for being here. And I want to pull you in on this conversation as well. What is the balance here? Because on the one hand, we don't want to not be militarily ready and have numbers so low and recruitment such an issue. We also want people to be fit enough to serve. What do we do?
Well, I think what we do is we establish standards that make sense for the position, and then we hold to those standards, right? There's a reason why I couldn't get a job at Home Depot because I can't lift 50 pounds over my head, right? And work the stocks. Maybe I could work something in the call center, but you know, the entire mission, what we need to keep in mind here is the entire mission is supposed to be about being battle ready and being able to physically take on the enemy in the field. And there should be no standard that should be fudged or minimized or weakened or lessened in any way that inhibits that. And you know that will mean that not every American who wants to serve in the U.S. military gets to do so. It's a unique group of individuals, and we need to keep the standards high.
You know, NewsNation spoke with retired Army Major General William Enyart right after Congress failed to pass the PACT Act on Sunday to help our veterans that initial time. And he says the government is willing to send our military out to war, but not willing to pay for the consequences of that war. Let's listen to that quickly.
If you're a veteran, as I am, how can you say to your sons and daughters, oh, I think the military is a great career and you ought to go do it, when we have these 25 Republican senators turning their backs on these veterans who are dying of cancers that we know, the VA has tracked the data points. They know this was caused by those burn pits. It is so reminiscent of Agent Orange and the Vietnam War with my generation of soldiers. It absolutely will have an impact on recruiting because the families will say, we don't want you going off to war and not be supported by our VA.
So, Reyahd, I want to bring you in on this. What do you make of this? Does it have an impact when a young person sees how we treat our veterans?
I think it for sure does. Retired General Enyart's 100% correct. I was in a conversation with my mother-in-law earlier today, and she talked about honor. He specifically gave you a very recent situation where prior to this age of vitriol, that we all supported our veterans 100%. Not just our veterans, there was honor involved. She said that. We've lost honor in our country. That's something that we need to think about. And I want to go back. I'm not saying that we need to lower standards by any means. I mean, my doctor says that I'm obese somehow, and I'd say I'm pretty physically fit. We should not be doing it to bring more people in, but we do need to show true respect to our veterans and to those who serve, and I do not feel that we are in an age in America where they are honored and held to high standards as some other people in our country.
I mean, Jason, what a bad look for the GOP. Would you agree for those 25 Republicans to reverse course, say that they were going to vote yes on the PACT Act and then not do that? I mean, was that a very political move? And ultimately, were our veterans paying for that? What kind of message does that send?
Well, the political move was on the Democrats, who added at the last minute an aspect to that bill that changed the minds of the Republicans. This wasn't a vote that was taken or a vote that was opposed because of the substance of the bill. This had very specifically to do with the budgetary mechanism within it that went to mandatory spending without congressional oversight. And of course, we're not going to create a slush fund at the end of the day for stuff that wouldn't even go directly to the veterans. So I think that when having this conversation, it has to be done on the left in good faith. I think it was set up for the Republicans to look bad, but anyone who knows the details of this particular bill understands what it was about, which is exactly why the Democrats could have just walked that one aspect back that was introduced at the last minute in order to get this thing passed, and they didn't want to do it initially.
And Jason, I mean, just to keep all of us honest here, meanwhile, Democrats and people who were lobbying on behalf of veterans would very much say substantially almost nothing changed between when Republicans were initially able to look at that, the PACT Act, and when it went through. Anyways, we're out of time for this one. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider, and don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.